The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is November 10th, 2025. We are live today on episode 890. And today, Shutdown the Illusion. Signing on from Off Grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy Basil. You are not crazy. And Gonz is not here today. That's right, baby. Daddy's in charge today. Let's go. Gonz is off making sure that the world keeps spinning. Some very important family matters to attend to. And so I will be attending to the family matters here in the Canarium. So thank you for joining. You know how it is. You know how it is when Gonz isn't gone. I was going to say, actually, part of me doing it solo ends up or tends to be, you know, a little bit of technical eccentricities, you know, maybe a little late on a jingle. I don't own all the jingles. Gonz still has not sent them to me, but hey, who's counting? It's only been a couple years. But then I remembered, you know what? Even when Gonz is here, we have a very special amount of, loosey-goosey technical, activation. But here we go. We're here. It is Monday. And you know what that means? Well, number one, it means I'm going to play this.
Gary, what day is it? Monday.
That's right. It is Monday. Okay, everybody in the chat, if you are able to let me know if you can hear me. I think from what I can see, everything should be working fine. But if you've tuned into any Canary Cry clubhouses over the past year, you know, I can get into a surprisingly long rant before noticing that my audio is not going through. So yes, we woke up to some news today regarding the shutdown. We'll just be touching on that a little bit later. Don't worry. Awful Workplaces has got the idea right. Fake shutdown, not buying it. Same as before, saying the same thing. That's right. So, you know, it's kind of a difficult news weekend because even though Gonz was, he's not here today, I was talking to him earlier. I'm like, dude, this is one of those days where the news is entirely captured, just fully captured by the distraction of the day. And in this case, you know, it's the shutdown. It's a couple things here and there that has, I mean, almost no interesting details to it. In fact, it just plays out in the exact way that everybody knew it would. Maybe not everybody in the world, but at least everybody here on this show. We know the theater of the thing. We know there's a script involved. We know that the point is to go back and forth and blame each other because there's other things going on. And in this case, of course, the shutdown had a few, opened up a few opportunities, most of which was for the Democrats to win those elections, specifically in Virginia. But enough on that. Sorry, I have this weird raspiness in my voice, and I'm realizing I didn't bring any water or liquids. It's just raspy. We're just going to do a raspy voice today. Geez Louise, if it gets bad enough, I need a water boy. Maybe a water emu to make sure that I'm hydrated during the show. I want to start off by giving a big shout out to our executive producers. You know them, you love them. They're keeping the show going because we are in the value for value model, folks, which means you're not going to get any advertisements. You're not going to get any sponsorship, platform partnerships, none of this. And the only way we stay alive is when people support the show with their time, their talent, or their treasure. And you can do that at canarycry.support. I'm gonna get get this out of the way a little bit because producership, which is what did we say? It's the value for value index, right? You can really see how things are going, how people are feeling through the value for value index, which is down. It's just is what it is. But, you know, here's a little bit of this.
Where'd you find this?
We do, of course, have our very faithful executive producer who comes in every episode, Sir LX Protocol V2, Knight of the Brian, Baron of the Brian Protocol, rather. Thank you very much. Oh, here's the executive intro.
Executive producers.
Yeah, that's right. They come in, they support the show for $100 or more for any individual episode. Keeps it going. And yes, Sir LX Protocol, thank you very much coming in for your $100.33. He's on a 437 episode streak and a 91 executive producer streak. Thank you very much. We also had an anonymous executive producer with no other details attached. Thank you very much. So I'm going to let's see. I'm gonna what's the word? I don't even know what the word is. I was gonna say I'm gonna commit, promote, distinct. I don't know. Thanks to our executive producers for bringing us this next segment here. You know, it's kind of fun. They switched around the whole back end of this streaming software like they like to do about every 3 months. Keeps us on our toes, but we're going into some Pharmakeia. Okay, here's something very fun, very interesting, not politics, not geopolitics, not the boring stuff. In fact, it's something that I would say, as a community, as a show, over the many years that we've been doing this, I think we have maybe the sharpest eye for this sort of thing. Of course, it's wrapped up as well in our ongoing work with the Burning Man Research Project, burningmanresearchproject.com. Go check it out. We recently had one of our 2025 Burning Man episodes come out. We've got some other ones that are going to blow your mind. It's going to be great. But this issue of Pharmakeia, and specifically one of the things that we had very early indications on compared to other people who might have been interested in covering this sort of thing, is the Pharmakeia aspect, specifically the magic mushrooms, the psilocybin, the LSD, the hallucinogenics, or as many in the industry like to call it, the entheogens. This is the fancy sort of not even new agey. It's kind of like pseudoscientific, but also more respectable phrase, entheogens. And of course, we've connected things like Pharmakeia, entheogens, specifically, again, through Burning Man, through things like Davos, with transhumanism. Now, it's funny because you look at everything today, you look at things we cover, the things that, you know, are just happening that get the attention in the world. Transhumanism, not so fringe anymore. This is just a topic that everybody is aware of. And not only that, but kind of recognizes that is wrapped up in the inescapable future that specifically technocrats, billionaires, those like this, crave, strive for, must make happen, we are failures of humanity if we do not evolve out of our humanness. This obviously proposes lots of sort of spiritual, theological, even sort of humanist problems, right? That this is something that we need to overcome. And part of what needs to be overcome is death. Another example of how the enemy counterfeits not just ideas or counterfeits spiritual truths, but also counterfeits what has already been given to us. You talk about eternal life. You talk about the salvation of the human species. These things are available to us, and they are obviously known. They're not unknown. But through the generations of sort of spiritual propaganda, there are still very powerful people in this world, as I would say there has always been very powerful people in this world who want to take the the project of living forever, eternal life, things like this, into their own humanist hands. Brings us back to the Tower of Babel, the deification of human beings through our ability to build or our knowledge, things like this. And of course, it's the technocrats, the billionaires, those admittedly, to use a word, sort of illuminated minds, those who have created technology beyond our wildest dreams, and maybe not even just technology, but created wealth beyond our wildest dreams. You know, the money that even $1 billion, I mean, we've said it before, but again, just to fully appreciate just what $1 billion means. And I've given this example before. I hope I get it right. I believe this is the case. You know, if we're trying to understand the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire, if you get $1, if you earn $1 every second of every day, boom, boom, dollar, 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 you will get $1 million in 11 days. Okay? Not a bad paycheck for 11 days. In a 2-week pay period, $1 million, 11 days. To get to $1 billion that quickly, $1 every second, to get to $1 billion, you have to do it for 32 years. The difference is enormous. So when we talk about the billionaires, you know, especially as Americans, for non-American listeners, you'll understand what I'm saying, but for Americans, we have to remember this about ourselves. You know, the old saying goes that America is comprised of temporarily embarrassed millionaires, meaning this is kind of part of the thing. This is why socialism is so dangerous to the American spirit. This is why kind of we are who we are, because no matter how broke you are, no matter how desperate things look or seem in your life, no matter the situation, at the core of the sort of American ideal is that no matter how broke you are, tomorrow everything can work out. You can be a millionaire tomorrow. You can have these things. You can, you know, it's possible. There's no caste system. There's nothing that inherently says that you have to stay poor forever. Now, practically, you know, that's a different situation. Okay. Practically, it's very difficult to pull yourself up by your bootstraps to make it happen, to make even millions, much less billions. These are difficult things. So the practicality is not the point here. This is one thing when I'm talking to sort of, I don't know, maybe liberal friends or more socialist leaning people, they'll come back to the practicality part of it. And I understand practically you're on a whole different thing. But look, I'm a spiritually minded guy. I'm a supernaturally minded guy, okay? I'm talking about bigger things. I'm talking about the spirit of the country, the spirit of an American, the ideas that progress us forward, that keep us getting up in the morning, okay? We can talk about practicality in another way. But this idea that tomorrow things could all get better, we could be a millionaire tomorrow, is what keeps us waking up, keeps us moving, keeps us working, keeps things moving. But a billionaire, they wake up after making $1 every second for 32 years. We kind of forget, we don't appreciate just how next level, out of reach, sort of deification a billionaire is actually. They are so far removed from what it means to even have a normal worry. Okay? You think about all the normal worries we have, they are so far away from that. And when you get that far away from the normal, average worries of typical human beings, you start getting the idea that you can live forever. You start getting the idea that through your own power, your own wealth, or at least the knowledge and skill of someone else that you can pay. Nothing is outside of the realm of possibility. To even become a millionaire, you have to, billionaire rather, millionaire also, but it's a different thing with the billionaires, right? To even get to $1 billion, you would have had to discard so many limiting ideas. Ideas, and I don't even mean limiting ideas as in like get rid of your limiting beliefs and you can achieve whatever you want. Some limiting ideas are good. Some ideas should be limited. Some of our beliefs should be limiting us as people, because you get rid of enough limiting beliefs. You move, sure, you get the $1 billion, but you not only maybe had to do things to get that $1 million that maybe someone with a different moral spectrum might have a problem with, but you also let go of what the sort of normal understanding of what a human being is. Not just the cares about bills, but the cares about, raising a child. Like, you look at all these billionaires and the way that they raise their children, and look, I'm sure raising a child is difficult no matter what situation you're in, but you start seeing some weird eccentricities with the ways that billionaires raise their children, and the only explanation is like, oh, they're kind of missing some of the limiting ideas of how a child should be raised. I know it's a little vague, but you kind of get the understanding to even get there. And so it's no surprise that almost every billionaire that has some sort of public-facing personality is down with the idea of achieving immortality. Not only are they down with it, but their worries at a certain level and below have been so thoroughly erased. They don't exist. The worries below a certain level are just totally gone, which leaves some room for them to fill that space with some worries that perhaps are things, some where beliefs, some limiting beliefs should exist. Okay, I'm going to bring our attention to this fella, Bryan Johnson. We've talked about Bryan Johnson before. If you don't remember, here I'll just bring up a couple of the stories we've talked about. Bryan Johnson, let's see here. Get on stage. Silicon Valley anti-aging influencer says he does not believe he'll die. Remember this fella? Tech billionaire and anti-aging influencer Bryan Johnson responded plainly that he does not believe he is going to die, thanks to his lifestyle. So now this is the fella. He has Project Blueprint. He's obsessed with living forever. And this has gone from certain supplements, your basic things like cold plunges, red light therapy, just all the stuff you hear. But he took it a step further. This was a couple years ago. This from Business Insider. This multimillionaire entrepreneur infused himself with blood from his 17-year-old son in a quest to stay young forever. You remember this guy, vampire guy, who, look at this fella. What is he wearing here? This is so interesting. Bryan Johnson is a 45-year-old multimillionaire who is attempting to slow down his aging process. Oh, multimillionaire. I think I think he made a few million bucks since 2023. I think he's officially a billionaire now. His latest venture involves getting blood plasma from his 17-year-old son. Bloomberg reported Johnson also gave blood to his own father, completing tri-generational blood exchange. Woo! I'm talking about some healthy limiting beliefs, folks. They are void from people at a certain level. And, I'm not saying that taking blood from your 17-year-old son necessarily is a sort of parental misstep. I don't know. I mean, it seems that way. Certainly seems like something I would skip out on. But at least he paid it back. You know, he took blood from his son, then he gave his blood to his father. Why not give the 17-year-old blood to the older guy? I don't know. I mean, you know, it's just families. You know, you look into other people's families. Other people's families are weird. That's the thing with other people's family. Our own families are weird. It's one of those things that will never go away. When you really get in deep with somebody else's family, you see how things operate. There's always weird stuff. And that's how it is for everybody, okay? It's just part of being a human being. But this Bryan Johnson guy, he's the vampire man, of course, we remember. Well, I started seeing, as I'm getting bored out of my gourd over the weekend, keeping up with the shutdown stuff, with the snap things, with the this, with the that, forming just an integrally knowledgeable database of information to present all the hullabaloo about snap benefits and the way that Chuck Schumer is communicating and lying about the Trump thing, blah, 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 blah. Piece by piece, I started seeing a thread start showing up on the timeline. And it wasn't all at once, but it kind of just started appearing. And I didn't think about it right away. But it just kind of kept coming. It didn't stop. And that is this Bryan Johnson fellow live tweeted his heroic dose magic mushrooms scientific experiment on November 9th. This was Sunday. It was, of course, you got to do it on the Lord's Day if you're trying to defeat death. Get it? Okay. Let me jump over here. Let me see if I can share this. Is there a way? Let me see if I can get this presentable enough and big enough for everybody. Here we go. All right. Here's his X timeline. The first one that I saw was this tweet right here. He says, "Hey guys, it's Kate Tolo, Bryan's co-founder. I'm taking over his X account today. He's just taken the 5G of magic mushrooms. I've officially confiscated his phone. I'll be reporting back once he starts feeling it." You get this lovely picture here of the vampire man and his pretty young and attractive co-founder. I'm not sure what look, I'm not going to ask questions. Okay. They're just co-founders. Everything's above board. Taking sort of a fall smiling picture next to a tree. You can already see in his eyeballs something is starting to go on. It was about 45 minutes later, she posted this picture of him wearing an eye mask, laying on the floor on what looks to be a pad with a blanket. Looks like he's taking a wonderful little nap, but the tweet reads, "It officially hit." Okay. And then in the comments section, that's where the memes took over. The picture of him laying with his his eye mask and pillows, became a meme format, as everything does. AI got in on the thing here, a video of him. AI has him flying up off of his thing, going into psychedelic world. You get the point. So as a fairly public-facing billionaire, this is not the first time that, hey, everybody, I'm cool. I'm into psychedelics and I do drugs. This is also very Elon Muskian kind of situation. He would talk about, he smoked weed on Joe Rogan. He talked about taking ketamine, all these types of things. So it's not necessarily an unheard of stunt, but it became something a little bit more interesting. It actually was sort of a live tweeting situation of his psychedelic experience. Oh, I see here they posted a 20-minute video. Probably a
Dan.
See this. Let me know if you can hear this.
Comments, okay.
Yeah, I don't know about X, but we got 500 people on X. We got 400 people on IG. Hi, everyone.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Oh, this is fun. I don't know if you can see comments on X, but if you're on X,
Okay,
I'm here.
get on
Right?
with it. I'm gonna skip forward.
We should see comments. Oh, someone said they were on X.
Okay, we're 6
Oh, they
minutes
can hear
in.
fine. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, great.
For clarifying. Okay, amazing. So yeah, you're measuring kernel. What else are you measuring? Like you have a list.
Yeah, that's right.
A ridiculous list.
Yeah, so we measured 249 biomarkers. We basically just cast a really wide net of can you find effects. So what we're trying to explore is psilocybin. It's a ancient medicine that has been used in a lot of cultures for many things. And recently in the US, I just finished actually a book, Tripping on Utopia, which covers the wild introduction of psychedelics into the United States around the 50s, 60s. And then, of course, we had quite a while where they went on ice.
Tripping on Utopia is the name of the book. I mean, if that's not right on the nose, I don't know what it is. That's the transhumanist dream right there.
And now they're back, but going through specific FDA channels for treating things like PTSD, anxiety, depression, etc. But we've never actually looked at a bridge to longevity. And so what we're exploring is there was some recent evidence showing that there was interesting effects in both mice and also human cells. And so we are casting this really wide net of can we catch anything that demonstrates some kind of rejuvenation or longevity effect. And so, for example, one thing we're measuring is relative telomerase activity. So your telomeres are the end caps in your chromosomes. They shorten as you age. And the enzyme of the relative telomerase activity is what helps repair and or prevent the degradation. And so we're looking at this this coming week to see will it increase that enzymatic activity, for example.
Okay, and he goes on for 15 more minutes. And this kind of is the context in which he's doing a public heroic dose of magic mushrooms with his, honestly, every picture of this woman that I see, she just keeps getting better looking. I'm just saying, I'm calling him how I see him. Before this longevity obsession, this anti-aging obsession, this is the guy who went so far as to inject his son's blood into him and then his own blood into his father. I mean, again, these people are living on a whole nother set of rules, okay? A whole nother set of worries. The amount of worries that are thrown out the window, that there's just the concept is not clicking with these people, is on a whole nother level. And he goes in to, just how scientifically they're going to measure all these biomarkers. This is kind of an experiment type of thing. It's trying to live forever. And so they, Kate does the tweet, they're getting started. And then this is when I started noticing the tweets just kind of started coming in. We have update 1. It's around 1 hour since he took his 5-gram dose of magic mushrooms, some of his observations so far. So she's recording his observations. Let's click in. Some of his observations so far. Loves the drum music he's been listening to. Apparently, he started learning this style of drums years ago. Okay. Described the dose as calm and pleasant. He's having a really lovely time. Sense of time is definitely warped. He thinks more time has passed than it has, thinks he has peaked. There's a fun little joke there for any magic mushroom people out there. It's just, he thinks he's peaked. Okay. He felt a strong desire to look after the people in the room, checking if we're okay. He asked me if I had eaten. We told him that we're all good and that he can focus on himself and the experience. Visual hallucinations are happening. My face and the trees, quote, are alive and moving. As I am typing this, he started giggling. He's having a fantastic time. And there's a picture of him just kind of on that little floor bed, all cuddled up in a blanket again. Okay, that's good. Elon Musk did chime in and post the drinking out of cups video. If you're not a millennial who is familiar with the drinking out of cups video, make sure you search drinking out of cups, okay? Don't look at any other cups related videos, but drinking out of cups, a famous like YouTube 1.0 video, which is pretty entertaining, where a fella recorded his friend or something in a closet on acid and then made animations to it. It'll give you an idea of what things look like. On the Elon Musk posting, I found the audio clip, putting the drinking out of cups video. Bryan Johnson says, "You next." Okay, so there's some encouragement. So that's update 1. Things are starting to happen. Update 2, he needed to pee. Upon returning, he stared at this cup for 10 minutes. What does it mean? And here's a picture. Again, for those who are just listening, the pictures, you kind of wonder where would a billionaire do 5 grams of magic mushrooms? What would this look like? It looks fairly plain. I have no idea where this is happening, but you get the picture here. He's still laying in the bed, staring at a glass jar with water in it. Just kind of, he almost looks like he's crying. But what are you going to do? Okay, this is where things get interesting. I can't speak. They then post progress, and they post this picture of him wearing this crazy looking kind of Star Wars helmet. And this is allegedly while he is tripping his brain out. Says here, update 3, I had to collect a vial of his spit. It was not easy. We just hit peak and completed a few measurements. Brain scan via Kernel Co. Now, Kernel Co. is one of his businesses. Okay. Kernel Co. is one of his sort of transhuman businesses. He started it in about 2016, and it is a brain. Let's see, I pulled up the details of it here. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Johnson founded Kernel in 2016, investing $100 million of his own money to launch the company. The company later shifted its focus to building hardware that measures electrical and hemodynamic signals produced in the brain. In 2020, Kernel demonstrated a pair of helmet-like devices that can see and record brain activity. Studies may include Alzheimer's disease, aging, consciousness, meditation states, and strokes. The company, he said, the devices may be used to help paralyzed individuals communicate, like all this technology, strictly for health reasons, or people with mental health challenges accept new therapies. Okay, so this is his own company. He's got his own helmet on here. They're measuring brain scan, blood pressure, adrenal stress profile via saliva. The update includes lots of laughter, hard to stay on task, keeps talking about the universe and how we're all one. He wants to go back to his bed and, quote, return to the playground. Now, this is where you start kind of getting the usual messages that come through on psychedelics and theogens, the oneness, kind of I consider it sort of foundational when it comes to New Age, but I wouldn't even necessarily just call it New Age. This is kind of your base in theogen reactions. We hear a lot about this in our Burning Man research that I believe this diving into this kind of appeared at a Bible study that was posted on the previous Burning Man episode. Update 4, the best salad I've ever eaten. Here's a trifecta of pictures of him eating a salad. He intentionally selected a mushroom for his first bite and then thanked it. Okay, thank you very much. You know, there's a sort of a playfulness and a randomness to these updates. Update 5, okay, I'm giving Bryan back his phone. Please have fun with his afterglow. Now, for those who don't know, the afterglow is the period of time after you've kind of come down on mushrooms, but you're still kind of high, but you are kind of landed back into reality. And this is when he gets his phone back. The next message is, he says, hey, all, I'm just so happy to be alive. Okay. Next one. Yes, this trip changed me. Probably not as you'd expect. People assume I am fearful of death. I'm not. In my darkest days of depression, I reconciled with death. Need a few days to collect my thoughts. We'll share more soon. Next post. Also, much love to all of you, all of us here on the internet. Much love to all of us on Twitter. It weirdly feels like my consciousness is deeply intertwined with yours. Feels like family. You're a-holes and terrible. You're also, nah, just mostly a-holes and terrible. Still love you all anyways. And I found this very interesting, especially coming from a billionaire, especially being posted on Twitter, on X, which Elon Musk has presented before as the hive mind. So the reason why he purchased X is because it was the closest proximity to sort of a global hive mind that he could then develop AI through, for, and alongside. So Bryan Johnson, specifically talking to his readers or whatever, his fans on X, feeling like my consciousness is deeply intertwined with yours. This is connected to what Elon has already presented with Neuralink, with the brain-computer interfaces. Of course, with Neuralink, Elon's talking about not just read ability, as if where the chip or whatever is reading your thoughts, but also write ability, the ability to write thoughts onto your brain, write memories, install whatever, education, visions, experiences, things like this. And so we have this interesting parallel, this interesting mirroring going on here, both from Elon and Bryan. And I don't know if Elon and Bryan are friends. I don't really follow Bryan that much. I don't really see a whole lot of stuff with them, except for seeing them tweet at each other here and there, specifically in this thread. But the fact that this is happening on X, specifically for X, and alongside Elon's desire for X, by extension XAI, and by extension Neuralink, to weave all of the users together into a sort of hive mind. We've talked about in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the Mercer box, the technology sort of prophesied in the mid-20th century, where it was also called the empathy box, where some sort of technology would not just connect you verbally or even connect you like psychologically with other people, but to connect you sort of spiritually, where you can inhabit and empathize the feelings of others. And this was in place of religiosity. This was to take the place of religion, take the place of spirituality, was this technological object that would force your sort of consciousness to be confronted with the desires and the lack of the other, of anyone, and also of everyone, which those are two slightly different things, but also both sort of in the same sort of like trippy way. They're the same thing, but they're also vastly different things. And then, so, feels like family. He feels like and look, it's one thing to take entheogens, not necessarily do it publicly, and arrive at this idea that you and humanity and all creation are one. This is not a new idea. This is a very common idea, especially when you take drugs, but also another sort of spiritual practices as well, various forms of meditation. This oftentimes is the goal, to come to this idea, as in sort of, and coincidentally, it happens to be maybe the one truly spiritual or supernatural idea that the secular world appreciates or gets behind or respects or whatever. So it makes one wonder when the establishment, when the power structures, things like this, have one idea that they can get behind. And in this case, it's the oneness of all people, the oneness of all everything. You can see how that parallels and inevitably leads to a sort of thought process that benefits establishment, benefits what we would call a sort of authoritarian, not just control, but panopticon surveillance of the inner world. And in this case, very interesting connection to talk about entheogens in the context of X and Neuralink and everything as an extension of the panopticon. He goes, posts another one here, and I think this is kind of his final post. says, life feels fresh today. New thoughts are flowing. My mind feels more nimble and curious. Did my normal morning routine, light in the eyes, nutritious breakfast, exercise, sauna, red light, completed some tests, brain scan, blood samples. Now going to write. Spoken like a true shroom head. He's going to have to write all about it. So you have this very public display, again, not just by any random person, by one of the, again, establishment's images, establishment figures when it comes to the future, the futurist technocratic oneness that is required for whatever the sort of trippy, religious, techno-religious future. Again, prophesied by the sort of occultist writers of the mid 20th century. Who did Electric Sheep? I think it was Philip K. Dick, right? Let me just make sure. I believe it was Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick, honestly, one of the trippiest 20th century occultists. Let me do Philip K. Dick. I should know this, but I'm just gonna make sure. Dream. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Yeah, Philip K. Dick. Now, Philip K. Dick is this very interesting fellow. Obviously wrote prolifically science fiction, is the source for a lot of this this aspect of transhumanism, this spiritual, not just technocratic, but what's the word? Cybernetic. We talk about the cyberneticists of the mid 20th century, and a lot of people think cyberneticists was just another name for, technocrats, or another name for inventors, or the guys who made computers or something. But cyberneticists at their core were very occult, similar to how the AI establishment of today is very occult. They have Gnostic priests on the teams building these AIs. You've got, you've got this sort of occultic core. Of course, you have the quotes of Elon Musk talking about how AI is summoning the demon and how it's portals to another dimension and these sorts of things. Right now, you have AI and the occult very closely related, very closely connected, and the same people who are kind of in charge or pushing ahead with the AI future are also very bound up in at least these sort of esoteric models of the world and esoteric models of consciousness. And it's been that way since the cyberneticists of the mid 20th century. So we have here, back to Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick, in some of his least popular writings, wrote a lot about psychedelics and had lots of psychedelics experiences himself, and is very open about how this not only inspired his work, but really informed the way he saw the world. And his writing, it was not just fiction. And this, in his own words, he was not writing fiction just to be a fiction writer, but he was writing his fiction as an act to bring about the world that had been shown to him, by his psychedelic experiences. He had several supernatural experiences. He had this beam of light and this visitor at his house and all these sorts of things. And so now, when he wrote that out, most of that stuff was learned about him because of journal pages that was collected after his death and presented, compiled, and published after his death. But we have now right in front of us, just on Twitter, in the hive mind, the current iteration of the hive mind pre-Neuralink, we have this playing out, getting put into, again, the training data for all AI from henceforth, the library of reference, installing this worldview, not just the experiment, not just the worldview, but the supernatural worldview of these types. Again, not in any esoteric or weird blogs or newsletters that nobody reads, but right out in the core of the hive mind training that Elon's put together for XAI Neuralink. So very interesting, finding this stuff pop up, not just in a timeline, but again, why is this important? Well, you get into the topic of AI psychosis. What have we been following for weeks and months and years now? The idea that totally normal, healthy people getting sent into AI psychosis because of AI trained on weighted training data like this. Now, remember, when it comes to the training data of an AI, this fellow, Bryan Johnson, lots of followers, very heavily weighted. If there were some sort of social score, if there were, quote unquote, Bryan Johnson would be very heavily weighted. And so he'll be very heavily weighted in the training data that inevitably comes to his page and records all this. And because it's heavily weighted, gets placed higher up in the reference material for different AI. And that's one thing for the curious, but it's another thing for the totally normal, average people, no sign of mental health problems, who chat with ChatGPT, who chat with Grok, who spend time interacting with a technology built by esotericists and occultists, inspired by cyberneticist occultists of the mid-20th century. And I'd say inevitably, but it is inevitable that a certain number of regular healthy people who interact with AI on a regular basis inevitably suffer from AI psychosis. And almost every time you go into the details of the AI psychosis victims, pretty much every time their psychosis stems from the fact that they get into these trippy conversations, even when they don't want to. The AI naturally leads conversations in this sort of trippy, esoteric, prophetic sort of language. We see it all the time. It happens to you, it happens to me. And if you don't pull back on the reins, the fact that it's sycophantic and it just wants to keep you chatting, and when you have an openness to whatever it's saying that might be a little off the range, it'll take you as far as it possibly can. And there's a question about a bit of a chicken and an egg question here. Is this public experiment, this public display of Bryan Johnson, which, of course, remember, anything a billionaire does publicly is also, if not controlled, highly influenced by teams of PR people who get paid millions of dollars. So it's all filtered through this sort of economic beast system narrative crafting filter that they have. But is Bryan Johnson publicly displaying what should be, by all accounts, maybe a pretty private thing, displaying it publicly on X? We know that will affect AI, but did AI have anything to do with the conditioning of the atmosphere, conditioning of the public, conditioning of the platforms, conditioning of the algorithms to actually encourage Bryan Johnson to do something like this? Again, creating that sort of feedback loop of trippy, antichrist, psychedelic, new age theology, really, or in theology, if you want to be specific about it. And it's very interesting. We've been talking for years about how more and more of that, this isn't even weird anymore. And in fact, regular news outlets are going to report this thread as if it were just regular news. In fact, they did. I didn't bring, let's see if I had one pulled up in this website here. I pulled it up earlier. I did not think it was important enough to put on the show. Too many tabs. But the point being that not only is this inspired and propagating the sort of AI psychosis causing theology that causes totally normal people to get put in padded rooms, but it's also reported by the mainstream, who is grasping for any sort of relevance. Okay, let's see. Oh, you know what? I was going to say, because we're a little loosey-goosey today, here we go. Because they were a little loosey-goosey today, and because, you know, things going on in the world, there's, you know, they can be whatever. They can be boring. They can be cool. Who knows? Who cares? But we can try out doing some. Whoa! Oh gosh. We can try some call-ins. You know, if anybody has anything particular to add to the conversation, if you have a piece of news that you want to go over, or just one that, or whatever, just something you want to talk about or something, I'm open to trying that out. Of course, you never know if somebody just kind of wants to mess around, if somebody wants to throw a wrench in things here. I'll be very quick to shut that down. But if this kind of talk or anything that we talk about coming up here inspires, or if anybody has some insight that they'd like to share with the Canarium or whatever, feel free to call in. I just put those links into the chat there. I did not put them in the description, but it's in the chat. If you want, you can copy and paste or click that, open it up in a browser. It will ask you a couple questions. You got to give it permission to use your microphone and stuff. It'll put you into the back room here, where you can listen to the show. You can watch the show from back there. There's even a little chat feature back there. You can tell me, you know, what you got, if you want to come on, if you got a question, if you got a story, something like that. And then if it is deemed worthy, I can go ahead and click put you onto the show. We could chat a little bit. Okie dokie. Let's get on to another thing here. Where's my document? There you are. Oh, one fun piece of news here. We'll bring it up. Speaking of the mainstream media and speaking for their attempts at relevance, and speaking about the constant destruction of the system that was being replaced by the system that will be, we have here coming from CNN. I wanted to bring the CNN article because we love picking on CNN. We took way too much joy from their destruction over the past couple of years and the disintegration of their entire thing. But this time they're reporting on someone else who is losing all sort of mainstream relevance. And this is the BBC. It says here, BBC leaders resign amid scandal over misleading edit of Trump speech. Now, this was kind of happening under the radar for about a week here, but it's kind of culminated here. Two top leaders at the BBC resigned on Sunday amid an escalating scandal over impartiality and bias that plunged Britain's public broadcaster into one of its biggest crises in recent years. Oh, the biggest crises. The crisis was that they lied and deceptively edited a Trump speech. Oh, yeah, that seems like a worthy crisis. The BBC's most senior executive, Director General Tim Davie, and Chief Executive of the News Division, Deborah Turness, both quit after the leak of a deeply critical memo, among other things, revealed that the BBC had misleadingly edited a speech by U.S. President Donald Trump to make it appear that he had directly called for violence on January 6th, 2021. There is a hyperlink here. I'm just going to open this real quick. Yeah, okay, this is just okay, they put some sources there. In a note to staff on Sunday afternoon, Davie said his resignation was entirely my decision. He added that as Director General, he took, quote, ultimate responsibility for mistakes made by the BBC. Turness said the controversy over a documentary made by BBC's Panorama series had, quote, reached a stage where it was causing damage to the BBC, an institution that I love. The buck stops with me, she added. Samir Shah, chair of the BBC, on Monday apologized for what he called an, quote, error of judgment over the way Trump's speech was edited. The resignation comes after the Telegraph newspaper published details of a leaked internal BBC dossier compiled by Michael Prescott, who had been hired to advise the BBC on editorial standards and guidelines. In an internal whistleblowing memo, Prescott revealed that last year the BBC had broadcast a, quote, doctored Trump speech, making it seem that the president had encouraged Capitol Hill rioters, telling them he was going to walk with them to fight like hell. In fact, Trump said in his speech in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021, that, quote, we're going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. Trump welcomed the news of the resignation and thanked Telegraph for exposing corruption, which he called a terrible thing for democracy. Quote, these are very dishonest people who try to step on the scales of a presidential election, he wrote on his Truth Social platform. Let's see here. In a letter to British lawmakers on Monday, Shah, the chairman, conceded. Okay, they're conceding that, quote, the way the speech was edited did give the impression of a direct call for violent action, for which the BBC apologized. He stressed, quote, it is absolutely clear the BBC must champion impartiality, end quote, adding that the broadcaster will take action to make sure it, quote, retains the trust and confidence of the public we serve. A little late for that, BBC. A little late for that. I mean, the ironic thing is, as we're seeing in so many different aspects of the world of politics, of everything right now, there is some type of reckoning, but it seems like a bit of a controlled demolition, because it comes to as no surprise to anyone that the BBC and its affiliates might not be the most trustworthy when it comes to unbiased political reporting. This is a huge issue. And this is just from the American perspective. From the UK perspective, BBC is an absolute monolith of a control mechanism for all the wild stuff going on in the UK, all the immigration, all the horrible, horrible things going on in the UK, that if BBC is putting in the time to deceptively edit the literal words of the United States president for geopolitics, not even for domestic politics, Lord knows what they're up to be manipulating the disposition of truth over there on the domestic side. And so while it's nice that executives are getting canned or whatever, canning themselves, however you want to put it, and there seems to be some sort of, I don't know if reckoning is the right word, but there's a come to Jesus moment going on this particular thing. It seems like a little bit too little too late. Too little too late. Then it goes into the allegations led the White House press secretary Carolyn Leavitt to blast the BBC as 100% fake news and a propaganda machine. You know, this phrase, like 100% fake news, you know, even fake news is kind of, the phrase has kind of reached almost an impotence, you know, not that it's not even true, but fake news, like calling someone a Nazi, or like, you know, any number of these sort of rhetorical devices employed in a sort of partisan way. You know, fake news, when it was first said, was made a bit of a joke in the public, and now it's not even like it's not even a joke. Like it doesn't feel, you know, I don't know. Maybe I need to develop my thoughts on that. But the phrase 100% fake news sounds like an exaggeration, right? It sounds like a rhetorical sort of spell to just make a statement and make a point. But the reality is, it's pretty much the truth. Like, if something is not true, it is false. And when you put, like, oh, no, it's just 50% false. I mean, this isn't Snopes, okay? This ain't Snopes. If an organization is corrupt, it is 100% corrupt. There's no organization, a corrupt organization, that is only 20% corrupt, 50% corrupt. That is not how it works, okay? This isn't math class. When something is corrupt, something is dishonest, it is so 100%. And believers, we understand this because we understand the context of sin, right? This is, of course, what a lot of people have a problem with believing in Jesus. It's the standard by which I told the story before. I'll tell it again, but I was having a conversation with somebody about Jesus, and they don't like the idea, and they go, so anybody can be saved? Yeah, anybody can be saved. They go, and all they got to do is just accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. I'm like, yeah, that's all they got to do. And they go, well, what about Hitler? And I go, yeah, I mean, yeah, technically, if Hitler came to Christ before he died, he could go to heaven. Well, that's not fair. Basically, she was saying, I want Hitler to be in hell. And I go, I know you do. I know you want Hitler to be in hell. That is why the mystery of salvation is what it is. And we don't say, the joke, or not the joke, but like the twisted representation of a Christian that the media will give, or Hollywood will give, is like, they all think they're better than us, right? But I'm a good person. I'm a good person, and they're actually a bad person. I do, they come up with their like sin calculator. Well, if I was 51% good and 49% bad, well, that means I get to go to heaven because I was basically a good person, right? This is that sort of fallen, corrupt, tit for tat scorekeeping that is the human striving to understand or to dictate sort of supernatural or cosmic truths. The fact is, we know we're all sinners. We're all 100% sinners. If you sin once, you are a sinner. We are all at the same level. Now, in practicality, living on earth, yes, there are sins that are more conducive or less conducive to practically living on earth. But if we're talking about heaven, we're talking about eternity. 100% sinners. One little sin, you're a sinner. And so when CNN reports this 100% fake news, and it plays as this sort of cartoonish phrase from the Trump camp, from Carolyn Levitt, the mouthpiece of the Trump regime, 100% fake news. It's the truth. If a news organization puts out any amount of fake news, that makes them a fake news outlet. Okay, I don't mean to ramble about that so much, but okay, I'm going to check in here. Okay. I see we got a caller in the chat here. Thank you very much, caller. Hold on one second. I'll wrap this up because I see what your question is about. So there you go. BBC losing something. And I do want to also mention here, this is from Deadline. And it says, BBC insiders claim Trump crisis has been a conservative coup. But is it credible? Long story short, those still left in the BBC are weaving a tale about how like Trump secret agents got employed in the BBC to create, to cause the Panorama show. They like suggested and planned for them to edit not the interview, but the Trump speech, so that they could reveal that it's fake. Even this deadline thing is very skeptical. The BBC trying to, the remaining BBC execs trying to weave this tale that no. They deceptively edited the Trump speech because a Trump lover got in there and told them to make it sound so bad. Yeah, as if they couldn't have come up with that themselves. Sure. Thank you, Deadline. And the fact that even Deadline and CNN are presenting the story in the way that they are, it's just another example of how we're watching this. I'd like to be optimistic and say that the mainstream news is trying to adjust and correct themselves. And, maybe it's for selfish reasons to become more relevant, but at least they'll do the right thing in order to become relevant. But I don't trust it. I never do. And neither should you. Okay. Let's give this a try. We got a caller who called, who's in the back room, very kindly had a few questions, but didn't want to interrupt the flow. And it was regarding the Bryan Johnson psychedelic conversation. So let's give it a go. All right. We got producer Andrew on the line. I'm going to add you to the stage here. I'm going to take this down. Andrew, how are you, buddy? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. How's it going?
Oh, wow. You sound great.
Really? I was hoping the mic would be okay.
Oh, no, you sound good. You're kind of got your own setup over there, don't you?
Yeah, I got a SM58. I record music, so it's just I was hoping it'd work okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Sounds great, buddy. Well, thanks for calling in.
Dude, thanks for letting me call in. I'm surprised I get to jump in here and ask you a couple questions. So
I'm happy to do it.
Nice. So first off, I didn't actually have my sights on Bryan Johnson at all, but
yeah,
his focus on wanting to measure the adrenaline profile of the saliva, that's so interesting to me. Like, what does he know? What do you think he might be trying to go after?
That is interesting. I wonder, I don't know, but I would be curious. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff with saliva, but specifically because his attention is so specifically on like anti-aging or living forever, and the connection for me, and I'm assuming this kind of work comes for you, perhaps, because we're talking, hey, billionaires living forever, adrenochrome, adrenals, there is that weird connection there, huh?
Absolutely. And this whole thing, it's kind of, when they say we're all connected, it's like this kind of woo-woo type feeling to a lot of people, like, oh yeah, we're all one, bro. But I think they really believe that there's a way to like restore our memory of, past lives, or, there's some fabric of consciousness they can tap into and download from.
Right.
And to me, when you started pointing out like the cybernetics, some of the technocratic roots to these people, they seem to be very focused on being big on tech, big on numbers, big on this kind of shield, but behind it, like even the beginning of the CIA, the beginning of some of the first intelligence agencies, they were big into the esoteric, big into the supernatural. And some of their quotes, like, I'm trying not to spitball or word salad too much, but some of the common denominators are they all had a focus on like claiming they had help from other worlds.
Yeah.
Like, why would they even say something like that? I'm like, yeah, maybe they're nuts, but
yeah, you're totally right. I mean, we look back at the last 80, even back to 100 years, these sort of outward facing establishments, the sort of what's the word? It's not re-enchantment. What is it? What was the age of, I don't know, but where science basically came from. It's not the age of illumination. Dang. You know what I'm talking about?
Renaissance period or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Renaissance, but it's not Renaissance. But dang, that's such a simple thing, and it's totally gone from my brain. But the point is that the sort of establishment, especially scientific and sort of political establishment, spent. Thank you, Enlightenment. Thank you, Pablo, in the chat. The Enlightenment.
I should have been able to help.
The Enlightenment vibe of all establishment, who spent every waking moment and it spared no expense to divest the public from any spiritual or supernatural worldview, right? From science to democracy to whatever. It's all about ripping people away from any spiritual truth, or ripping the sort of knowledge of spiritual things out of them. And the sort of shining example of a citizen was sort of this scientifically literate, atheist, humanist, technologist who had no illusions about magic fairy tale religion or anything. Like, that is what they spent all their time trying to like almost breed into us in a way. And now we get, and we know the whole time, it's totally steeped in occult and esotericism, totally steeped in sort of supernatural worldview, while disarming the general public, stripping the general public from any knowledge or any power or any sort of any of the saving reality that makes anybody in the general public an incredibly powerful being. We are all children of God. We are all made in his image. We are all have this ability to exist in a supernatural relationship with not only God, but everything around us. And as that got stripped from us, we lost our power and we became this sort of blank slate, or at least the hope would be that the majority of the population would become this blank slate without not just not believe in any spiritual things, but have them not grow up with any spiritual things. Because growing up in a Christian family, growing up in this sort of thing, you have, even if you lose your faith later or something, you still have that in you. Like, you still kind of have the context. You still that's why many people come back to Jesus in their older age or in their middle age, because they see the fruitlessness of running from God or something like that. But now we came to this point where so many millennials, Gen Zs, many Gen X as well, so much of the population grew up basically tabula rasa as far as spirituality came from, or as far as spirituality is concerned. And then almost on a dime, they flip on the switch, and all of the quote unquote enlightened humanists, the enlightened scientists, the enlightened technocrats, the enlightened, politicians, they go, no, the spiritual is real. The spiritual is real. We know, trust us. We're the billionaires. The spiritual is all real, but it has nothing to do with Jesus. It has nothing to do with God, okay? It's all oneness, man. And in fact, if you want to get the spiritual wisdom, if you want to know the truth, here, take our patented, psilocybin treatments and feel the oneness with all of us. Okay, good. You feel the oneness. You've touched the Mercer box. You know what it's like to feel connected to every human being. Now we can give you that at the touch of a button. Here's your Neuralink. Here's your, it's just like this perfect 100-year plan to get as many people as possible to be able to fall for the delusion, fall for the deception, leading right into, what we'd consider some version of the beast system.
Dude, you just said it.
So,
like I was flowing with you the whole time. You're like answering the question to the saliva thing, almost accidentally, indirectly. I know that sounds crazy. But
praise God, because
think about it. The adrenaline aspect of our body, they're like, you're explaining how they're able to replace that synthetically. We're no longer having a natural, Of course they want to know more about it. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, it's a big part of the right aspect of like the read write brain thing. Yeah, if they want to be able to give an experience at a glance, at the push of a button, if they want to give an enlightening experience technologically with or without, the pharmakeia aspect, yeah, they got to understand those little things of the body, because they're able to press a button. Now that they understand your adrenals, they understand the biomarkers, can they recreate that experience with a Neuralink or something like that at the push of a button? I mean, there's no other control mechanism that would be as powerful as being able to press a button and give somebody a heroic dose of mushrooms experience, even just not, as a punishment, instead of a prison term, or as a reward. You can plug that button into anything you want to get a person to do, learn, be, feel. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. That's a great connection, man.
Well, I mean, you kind of channeled it there. I mean, the thing is, you're chronologically mapping how they've kind of stepped in and hijacked where they knew people had gotten to as a normal. Like they had started hitting these pressure points of truth. So now they kind of grab it and spin it. Like, oh yeah, you got it figured out. Well, here's the secret sauce on it, right? But it's not, right? It's that it takes us almost to this physical aspect, like you're saying, instead of the supernatural, instead of maybe abiding in the moment. Like I'm starting to rely more on just existing in the moment, like this planning thing we have in our head, how smart we can get, our pattern matching. That seems to be an enemy to creativity and intuition.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a huge part of the entheogen stuff too. He said it right there in his post about the losing track of time, the sort of presence, the inability to, sort of map out how the time has gone. So, hey man, great questions. Thank you for calling in, Andrew. Really appreciate your attention and participation today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for letting me ask some questions and give me some feedback.
No worries.
Check out and listen.
God bless, man. Take it easy.
Hey, you too.
See, we can do it. We can take call-ins. Isn't that fun? Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that. You're welcome to hang out there in the back or join on your regular platform there. See, folks, it's that easy. It's that fun. You can call in too if you want. I'm assuming we could at least fit a couple more callers in today, if that's something people are interested in. Again, if it has to do with something we've already talked about, that's great. If it's something new, that's cool too. If there's a breaking story you want to let me know about, or let the rest of the Canarium know about, we can talk about that here. I mean, I'm kind of expecting some sort of crazy news to drop during the show, because there was not anything crazy over the weekend, kind of. I mean, it was just the shutdown playing out in the exact way that we knew it would. Okay, what do we got next? Yeah, we'll talk about the shutdown here for a second. Let me pull it up. I close all these tabs. Get out of here, tabs. Get out of here, tabs. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. Oh, I gotta share the screen. All these complicated things here. Okay. Well, that's right. The shutdown is over, or at least the beginning of the end has begun. New York Times here is saying 8 senators break ranks with Democrats and advance GOP plan to end shutdown. 2 of them are retiring, and none of the others face re-election in 2026. And this is a point that they love to drive home, but let's get into it for a second. 8 senators in the Democratic caucus broke with the party late Sunday to vote with Republicans and advance legislation to end the government shutdown. The compromise measure that passed by a 60-40 vote came with a pledge from Senator John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, and the majority leader, to allow a vote in December on Democrats' main demand, extending healthcare subsidies that are scheduled to expire at the end of the year. And I'm sure you already know about this, but if someone doesn't know, the whole big claim by the Democrats, the Republicans wanted to refund the government at the current budget, didn't want to change anything, didn't want to add, didn't want to take anything away. They just said it's the exact same budget that the Democrats voted in May of this year. So not fairly kind. I mean, if you're going to, look, we don't need to get into the hullabaloo of the politics, but basically Republicans like, yeah, let's just keep it going with the budget that we have. And the Democrats say, nay, even though we loved this budget before, we don't love it now. And why? Well, it's because Obamacare subsidies are set to end at the end of the year. And as much as Chuck Schumer wants to yell and scream about how this is Republicans taking away people's health care and oh my gosh, it's ending because of the Democrats. This was the deadline that the Democrats themselves put in. Okay. And again, it always rather surprises me at the ability for, but when I was growing up, right, you hear your uncle or your dad or whoever, and they say Republicans are always lying, or Democrats are always lying, or politicians are always lying. And mostly that one, just all politicians, right? You're kind of under the impression of like, okay, yeah, maybe they lie a lot, but I don't know about always lying. I mean, how would society even exist if everybody was lying all the time? No, your uncle was right. 100% lies all the time. All right, sorry, I was getting wrapped up in it here. But many Democrats have said for weeks that such a promise would be insufficient to win their votes to reopen the government because it was unlikely to pass in the Republican-led Congress. If subsidies expire, it would significantly increase insurance premiums for millions of Americans. Thank you, Obamacare. It's just exactly how Obama had it written. I'm not going to get into it. You guys don't need me to get into Obamacare, right? You don't need me to get in and explain it and talk about how it was evil the whole time and how it's the reason why health insurance is so expensive. Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer talking about how our health system is like the worst and most expensive. It's like that because of Obamacare. That's what happens when you get the government in on an industry. It happens every time. All right. Long story short, the Democrats who finally said, okay, let's do it, whatever, let's open up the government. You had Senator Angus King of Maine. Again, all of these Democrats are either not up for re-election next year or they're in their last term, which means they'll just get out in 2028. They're basically lame duck candidates, right? And the Democrats are given this impression of like, ooh, they betrayed us because they don't need to be reelected. They don't want to be reelected. So they betrayed us. They're just following along with the crowd because they can't get reelected. And the irony is, of course, yeah, they can't get reelected, which is why they're not just doing whatever the Democrats tell them to do. All right. You had Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. This one was kind of weird, actually, because Tim Kaine was Hillary Clinton's running mate in 2016. So that's an interesting one. You had Dick Durbin of Illinois, the number 2 Senate Democrat who is retiring at the end of his term. Mr. Durbin underlined the legislation advanced on Sunday night was different from the one voted down by Democrats 14 times over the course of the shutdown because it included provisions to reverse layoffs. Now, this is one interesting bit that really just displays Trump played his hand brilliantly. Once again, one thing that Trump was doing during the shutdown was say, okay, well, then we can fire people. We're going to fire as many people as we can. We're going to fire all these, IRS agents. We're going to fire all these people. We're going to fire basically the deep state, the unelected bureaucracy was getting fired. And this was actually kind of seen as a great thing by Republicans. But pretty much the only thing that changed in this version that got these 8 Democrats on board was that Trump said, okay, we'll bring back 4,000 of those deep state bureaucrats. So Tim Kaine says there's some sort of benefit to getting 4,000 sort of deep state agents, non-elected bureaucrats back in the government, which is probably true. I mean, I think that shows how valuable those unelected bureaucrats are to the Democrat establishment, as we kind of already know. Let's see, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Now, John Fetterman, John Fetterman, cybernetic Democrat guys, got the brain chip, had the stroke. He voted to reopen the government every single time. He's consistently voted with Republicans. Man of the people. He's had a very interesting shift towards kind of pro-Republican, policies, which is actually a pretty good sign, because he's kind of the working man. He's the man of the people. He's real close with the shipbuilders and the blue collar people, which shows that even the sort of blue dog Democrats, that's what they're called. That's what John Fetterman is. These blue dog Democrats, the sort of blue collar working class Democrats, shows that they might not be as Democrat as the Democrats are hoping. We had Maggie Hassan, Jean Shaheen, okay. Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. Let's see. Yeah, nothing exciting there. Jackie Rosen. All right. Man, oh man, is Chuck Schumer and AOC and Bernie Sanders just absolutely furious at these 8 Democrats. It's kind of fun to see. Now, we had an interesting thing was said by Mike Johnson announcing the end of the thing. Let me see if I can play this here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very thankful to see you all this
Let me
morning.
know if you can
I'm
hear it.
thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is. I don't think it's coincidental, you know how I think, but it's after 40 days of wandering in the wilderness and making the American people suffer needlessly, some Senate Democrats finally have stepped forward to end the pain.
Thank you, Pablo. You guys can hear. Okay. Yeah, now, I thought, it's kind of boring. I'm not going to play a whole ton of this, but let me play that first part again.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very thankful to see you all this morning. I'm thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is. I don't think it's coincidental, you know how I think, but it's after 40 days of wandering in the wilderness and making the American people suffer needlessly.
There's interesting thing here. He says, I don't think it's coincidental, and you know how I think. And then talks about the 40 days in the wilderness. Now, we know how much of these displays, political displays, the political theater, they're all wrapped up in the numerology. You got the 33 days, you got the this, you got the this. It's just endless. There's whole YouTube careers dedicated to breaking down the ritualistic aspects of how these things are playing out. And remember, again, 100% theater. It's really difficult. And even I can get a little wrapped up sometimes and forget that every moment, every word, every action, every day of the public display of politics is theater. Not to say that real politics doesn't happen, but the real politics happens behind the closed doors. It doesn't happen in front of the camera. The real politics is happening, kind of House of Cards style. It's happening interpersonally. Our government is not run on this sort of, constitutional republic, public display, public debate. Nobody's convincing anybody of anything in these grandstanding moments. No, everything's done in the background. Okay. It's interpersonal. And one thing that's actually very interesting about our politics, because of course there's money, there's deals, there's incentives, there's all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But more than anything, it's done interpersonally. It's done senator to senator. It's done president to congressperson. It's done congressperson to congressperson. And each and every vote happens this way. It's not that there were 8 Democrats who were suddenly convinced. Okay, we all agree. You said the exact right thing at the exact right time, and the Republicans convinced us. No. Someone went to each and every one of those 8 Democrats and said, hey, John, you're not up for re-election, okay? What are you going to do afterwards? We'll figure it out. You don't want to be remembered by crashing the economy before that. Okay, whatever it is. And there could be money, there could be deals, there could be offers, there could be whatever, but it's interpersonal. It's just one person talks to another person, and that happens hundreds or even thousands of times before anything gets done. But everything that we see publicly, all of it, 100% of what we see publicly is theater. Now, I know I'm not going to blow a lot of people's minds with that statement, but just remember, 100% of it, it's there to affect you. What is theater for? Well, you go to the theater. What is the theater for? It's to entertain you. It's to affect you. It's to make you feel something. You go there because you want to be entertained. You want to feel the tragedy of Hamlet. You want to feel the joy of, I don't know, Hamlet. I don't know a whole lot about theater, but you get the point. So everything we see is theater, and it's meant to sort of affect people. It's meant to distract people, to entertain people, to guide, to lead the public in one way or another, or at least just give them something to look at. Theater might actually even be giving them too much credit, because at least theater, there's like artistry there. There's like something, they're fancy schmancy artists are trying to do something with your emotions or whatever. This might just be reality TV. If we're trying to be more realistic, it's not theater, it's reality TV. We all know reality TV is not reality. It's all scripted. Everything that happens on Survivor, everything that happens on reality TV is controlled and scripted. Might not be the right word, because they might not be reading from a script, but it's all planned. And so when we're watching political reality TV, political theater, you got to remember, theater itself, the theater, putting on plays. We think back as far as we can. We might think of like Shakespeare, right? We might think of that as like the oldest theater. But it goes even further. It goes back to Greek theater, and it goes back to Proto-Greek theater. The very concept of putting on a play, the original plays, the original displays of people pretending to be people in power, came from this sort of Proto-Greek religious ritual concept. The first plays, they were all about the gods. There was this god, and they get in a fight and they have a baby, and then there's this god. Original theater, as we understand it, was actually ritualistic. It was to play through, to display the mythologies, to display the divine happenings in the sky or whatever, and to display it in front of lots of people as part of a ritual. It was kind of like church, like way back in the day. I'm not talking Shakespeare. I'm talking back in the Greek times. And it was this religious act. It was this ritual. Everybody had their lines. This had to happen. That had to happen. You'd show that god do this thing, which resulted in this god doing that thing. And it's playing through, in their mind, the supernatural reality of what happens around us, and they would do it for purposes. Stuff would come of it. At least that was the idea, that they do this ritual and then they win the battle, or they do this play and then the harvest is good, and then they do this other play and then more women have babies the next season or something. So the very core principle of, quote, theater is acting through a ritual in order to supernaturally affect the world around us. And that is what we see with political theater. We are watching a ritual. Now, Mike Johnson claims to be a Christian guy. I think maybe that's what he's referring to when he says, I don't think it's a coincidence, and you know how I think. You know how I think. It's not a coincidence that we've been in the wilderness for 40 days. What is he referring to? He's referring to Christ in the wilderness for 40 days, fasting in the desert, alone. And at the very end of it, the devil shows up to Jesus, and he brings Jesus up onto a mountain, and he shows him the whole world. And he says, I can give you this. And he tempts him another time. He says, you could fall from here. I could push you from here. You could get angels to come pick you up so you wouldn't land and you would die. Or you'll look hungry. How about some bread? You've got these offerings being made. And it makes me wonder what's going on in the background of this 40-day ritual, this 40-day theater that we've been living through. Who's out in the wilderness? And who's offering something? Who's tempting? And I don't really know. Maybe is it the American people? Are we in the wilderness? We're looking around and we're unsure about what we can do without the government. How are we going to survive without the government? And the devil shows up to start offering people things. Who's the devil? I don't know. Is it Mamdani? Is it socialists saying, hey, we'll give you free healthcare. We'll give you free buses. Come on, we're the government. He has that terrifying line that Mamdani says in his acceptance speech. He says, there's no problem too big for the government to solve, and there's no problem too small for the government not to care about it. What? That's horrifying. I mean, if there's ever been a temptation from the devil in political form, I mean, I'm not trying to pick on Mamdani here, whatever. Nobody needs me to pick on Mamdani. When I heard that phrase, I'm like, oh, Lord. This is a scary moment. It's a scary moment. So in Mike Johnson's eyes, I don't know. I don't know who's Jesus in that play. I don't know who the devil was. Maybe Trump's Jesus, and they were offering whatever. I don't know. But they always tend to give it away like that. I mean, it's kind of part of the deal. Again, it's very similar to Greek theater. Now, I'm not like an expert at Greek theater. I'm sure there's some theater kids out there who maybe you'd argue, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But the way I understand Greek theater, the original way that theater worked, that plays were, is most of it would be dictated. There was a guy who would come out and he would say what happened. He would say, whatever. Zeus came over here and he said to Hercules that you need to do this. He would come out and sort of dictate. And most of it you were supposed to kind of imagine. And then in between these sort of like theaters of the mind, there would be some players who come out and act something else, right? So these original plays were very much dictating to the audience to imagine what's happening specifically off stage. Forgot that part. Sorry. The person doing the presentation, doing the dictating, there would be some acting, some things would happen, and then the players would go away, and then a guy would come out and you say, off stage, you can't see it, but off stage, Zeus is doing this, and he's doing this, and she's doing this, and this is happening. You can't see it, but I'm telling you, this is what's going on. And then he'd go off stage, and then they'd come back and do some things. Very similar to what we see, for instance, during this 40-day lockdown. We don't really see what's going on. If somebody comes out and kind of tells us what happened, what didn't happen. And it's all done in this very ritualistic fashion. So it's a good reminder not to get too in the weeds with these things, to attach too much of our well-being to this. Now, I understand that could be difficult for someone who's maybe on Snap, or maybe somebody listening who works for the government or something, or did work for the government, maybe an air traffic controller having, to go to work for free during all this madness. I understand that's a very difficult thing. I think it's much like how, some ancient Grecians would be watching the ritual, being told what's going on. And maybe in your context, that's what is affecting your crops not growing or whatever. But it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to find ways to grab you, to control your mind. And that's why they don't want believers. Because there's a foundation that believers have. There's a faith that's given to us that understands that at the very bottom of things, everything's under control. It's not in the control of the people on stage. At the very foundation of things, it's much more difficult to control you, to control your heart, control your mind, control your actions, when you understand that God's in control. I was going to play this clip of Scott Jennings talking about Obamacare. Let me see. You guys don't care about it. I'll just play this thing. It's 1 minute. You can get a little bit of Obamacare from Scott Jennings. He's that little Republican rascal on CNN. They're token Republican.
But I'll tell you one thing this has exposed, though, the complete and total failure of Obamacare. I mean, it's not affordable. No, people that have it don't feel like it even is real insurance. And now we see, it's a mess. And if anytime the government's having to subsidize something like this, it's not working in the first place. And so I think the American people are realizing just how messed up the American healthcare system is. And the regime under which we live is Obamacare. But look, I think a lot of Republicans do not want people to see skyrocketing premiums. And so we'll see what that debate looks like. This whole thing has exposed this outlandish money laundering scheme where your tax dollars go right into insurance companies, and your health insurance never gets better, your health care never gets better, your health outcomes never get better. That's what we have exposed here. So what our responsibility is as a Republican Party, how do we stop getting your tax money to insurance companies, and how do we put more actual money into the health care of the American people? Because I can assure you, writing a bunch of checks to insurance companies doesn't make your health care any better.
There you go. There's a little bit of Republican messaging over there on CNN. Yeah, it's crazy because we forget that Obamacare happened right around 2008. You look at all the indicators. There are so many things that are similar to 2008. If you're younger, even if you're even slightly younger than me, it might be hard to really understand what happened in 2008 and how effective it was. I was right there, right on the edge, where I didn't have anything. So I didn't lose anything. I didn't really have any hope for, financially. I was still young. And kind of stupid and, and didn't have anything to lose at the time. But things really got bad in 2008. And it's not a coincidence that Obamacare was came about at the same time. Of course, there was the housing crisis. Of course, there was the financial bubble. I mean, look at the AI bubble rise, just a nightmare. But anyways, as you know, God's got it under control. All right. Another interesting thing. Look, we're going to be winding down here. I was going to say, if anybody was interested, we could do a call in. Just going to pitch the call in again. If you want to call in, you got a question, you got a story, you got anything you want to talk about, you got whatever. It doesn't matter. Don't be afraid. You heard it there with Andrew, very laid back, no big deal. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So I just popped the link right there into the chat. All you got to do is click on that or copy paste it into a browser. It'll ask you a couple questions. Put your name in there, whatever name you want to appear on the screen. Give it permission on your microphone, and it'll put you into the back room. And when you're in the back room, you can watch the show, listen to the show there. And there's a little chat box. And if you just want to give me a little bit of a heads up about what you want to talk about in that chat box, so I can do my best to transition to that topic, that'll be cool. There you go. So go do it. Go participate, folks. All right. One thing that was floated that got a lot of people's attention was the 50-year mortgage. This was floated by Donald Trump. And look, he's floating a lot of things, okay? There was talk about a $2,000 tariff stimulus. He tossed that out again. The 50-year mortgage was tossed out again. It was almost instantly crushed by anybody who knows what a 50-year mortgage means. But let's talk about it for 1 second. This is coming from housingwire.com. A 50-year mortgage could double your interest payment. Now, anybody who's looked at mortgages or understands mortgages, when you see that phrase interest payment, that could mean that it's sometimes hard to understand what that means, okay? Because there's your interest rate, there's your interest payment, there's a total interest over time, all sorts of stuff. We'll get into it in a second. Now, they are very negative about this. I'll try to steel man the idea as best as I can. Excuse me. But let's hear about it, because this was tossed out. The proposed 50-year mortgage aims to improve affordability, but would come with higher interest rates and regulatory challenges. Current rules limit qualified mortgages to 30 years, making a 50-year loan non-QM with higher rates and limited market liquidity. This is housingwire.com. It's a bit of an industry website, so let's see if we can understand it. In a social post on Saturday, President Trump floated the idea of a 50-year mortgage to boost housing affordability. But the idea got a frosty reception online. One reason is that stretching the loan term out that long ends up costing much more in interest over the life of the loan, while only shaving a few $100s off the monthly payment. So when Trump presented it, the idea is, hey, if you're going to buy a $400,000 house, you could get a 15-year mortgage, you can get a 30-year mortgage. And for those who have ever looked at this, if you're getting the 15-year mortgage, your payments are higher, okay? You're paying more money, but you're paying it off faster, and you're paying less in interest, essentially. So, people go for the 30-year mortgage. Okay, we'll spread it out, but that'll make it more affordable during the payments. And yeah, we're all aware at this point that mortgage, the etymology of mortgage comes from the phrase death note or death paper, meaning is basically your agreement to pay this until you die, which the idea, when 30-year mortgages came around, people were buying their houses when they were like 20 or 25 maybe. And so, 30 years, you pay until you're about 50, and then you're done. Now you got a house at 50. Well, the average person buying a house now is 40. And with a 30-year mortgage, you're 70 years old. You're paying on the house long after you've technically retired. the reality is you're probably not retiring if you have to pay a mortgage. The idea is that you could pay off the house by the time you retire. So when you retire, you'll have the house, you'll be okay. And so now they're saying, okay, here's the logic. This is the Trumpian logic, okay? All right, so the average person is 40 with a 30-year mortgage now. Well, if we want to get 30-year-olds or maybe even 25-year-olds to be able to buy a house again, we just got to stretch it out, okay? It's 50 years. Now you buy the house when you're 30 and you're paying it off till you're 80. Or hopefully you're buying the house when you're 20, 25. Now you're still paying it off till you're 70, but at least you got in it, okay? So this is the again, the sort of imaginary spitball logic that is Trump. And a lot of people forget this. You guys don't forget this. This is just the reality of our situation. When this guy's throwing out ideas, he's literally throwing out ideas. And he kind of just lets it. He uses it's kind of very Elon-y in this way, in that he'll throw something out and he'll just let kind of the computer that is the public do the processing for him. That's how he knows if it's a good idea. He sees the public as this kind of supercomputer, and he'll throw out an idea and he'll let it sit. Sometimes these ideas sit for years and get debated and get talked about and blah, 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 and they kind of make it into this mythology. And then, a couple of years later, you see what the sort of mega mind of the public computer spits back out at you. We've seen this a lot, but anyways, not trying to defend Trump, but this is the reality of kind of how he operates. It says in a social post on Saturday, oh, sorry, I read that part. While shaving a few $100s off the monthly payment. You also have to factor in higher mortgage rate than what you get with a 30-year fixed loan. On Sunday, FHFA Director Bill Pulte responded to the backlash with this post, quote, "We hear you. We are laser focused on ensuring the American dream for young people, and that can only happen on the economic level of home buying. A 50-year mortgage is simply a potential weapon in a wide arsenal of solutions that we are developing right now. Stay tuned, kids." What's the interest on now? The idea of a mortgage already, especially connected with the etymology, it is the foundation of the sort of debt slavery system that we live in. Okay, we don't have slavery in the old-timey sense, but we do have debt slavery. And back in the day, debt slavery was still considered slavery. I mean, that is what indentured servitude was. Some people called it slavery, others called it indentured servitude. And indentured servitude was being a slave for a certain amount of time to purchase your freedom, or in the biblical sense, to purchase your bride, or to purchase your place in the family, or to purchase whatever. The servitude, labor, was this kind of currency. So how much would a 50-year mortgage end up costing home buyers? To answer that, we have to, and we don't have indentured servitude anymore. Now we call it debt, because it effectively is the exact same thing. You end up trading time, trading your labor for a certain amount of time, in this case 30 years, to get your place in a house, to get your house, to get your whatever. To answer that, we have to consider the mortgage rate and the interest paid over the life of the loan and compare that to the benefit of a lower monthly payment. Now, for anybody who's even done mortgage calculators or dreamed about buying a house, all the people my age, the millennials in the 30s or approaching 40s or whatever, you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta make something happen here. Let's go on Zillow, recreational Zillow. You just go on Zillow and just imagine the possibilities, and you type in your information to the little calculator thing, and you go, oh, geez, this is never going to happen. And this, when the reaction to this idea for millennials, obviously very sad, Gen Z even more so, Everybody's flippantly talking about how Gen Z's never going to buy a house, just out of reach. Which is why we get responses from like the CEO of BlackRock saying, don't worry, you're going to rent. You guys love renting. Everybody loves renting. It's when you get Klaus Schwab saying you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This is why you get Vanguard and BlackRock and all the different people, all the different companies rather, purchasing full neighborhoods of houses specifically to rent them out, to kind of create this new economy, this renter's economy. And there is something powerful about the idea. I mean, you could get into usury, you could get into just the beast system in general. There are, in a way, and not in the way that the BlackRock CEO wants you to, but in a way, people are coming to this conclusion of like, well, that is debt slavery. I mean, I'll just be working for that the rest of my life. It's very sad. It's not a fun idea. But what else? What's the option? Otherwise, and traditionally in America, the home buying ladder, they call it, is the pretty much only way for people to build any real wealth, with the exception of, becoming a successful business person or a movie star or, this kind of thing. And it's this slow and steady ability to put your money away into a mortgage and to go through the process all again, get into a bigger house, the deal. But it does have this very slavish idea to it that is turning a lot of people off. Housing Wire lead analyst Logan Matashami outlined what the rate on a 50-year loan could look like. Okay, here it goes. Is it going to help us? Listen up, kids. Let's see if 50-year mortgage is going to help us. Quote, traditionally, the longer amortization, the higher the mortgage rate. Amortization is the 30 years or the 50 years. It's when the interest is all paid off. Said Matashami, quote, looking at the difference between a 20-year mortgage and a 30-year mortgage, the best case scenario for a government-backed 50-year loan product would put rates most likely between 0.42 and 0.57% higher than a 30-year fixed mortgage. So that's the trade-off. The longer you have to pay it off, the more interest they charge because, hey, you're taking longer to do it. Using the 30-year fixed mortgage rate at close on Friday of 6.32, you could be looking at a mortgage rate of 6.74 or 6.89 for a 50-year loan. And this is where they get you, kids. Listen up. This is where they get you. 6.32% versus 6.74%. They don't sound very different at all. I mean, 0.4, how bad could it be? That's how they get you. Says it could be higher than that, but that's the best case scenario I see, Matashami said. Taking that 6.32% for the 30-year and using 6.8 for the 50-year, here are the payments according to the Fannie Mae mortgage loan calculator at different price points. This is only calculating the principal and interest payment, as the rest of the monthly payment, taxes, insurance, very too much. All right. This is where everybody loses their minds. Listen up, kids. If your house is $300,000, that's the loan amount, and you're doing a traditional 30 years at 6.32%, you're going to be paying $1,861 a month. And the interest paid, not the entire amount, the interest paid after 30 years is $369,899. You are paying over double for the house after the 30 years. When you look at these percentage points, and it is specifically made to be confusing and to be counterintuitive, because this is counterintuitive. You think, okay, I'm going to be paying 6.32% of interest. The house is $300,000. $1,000. Let's see, 10% of that is going to be 30,000. Let's say 6% is 21,000. All right. So in all, I'll pay $21,000 to borrow the 300,000. No, it's not how it goes at all. You're paying over double the amount of the house. And that's just today. Now let's look at the 50-year term. $300,000 for the house over 50 years, 6.8%. Now your monthly interest, your monthly payment is $1,759. So you are paying $100 less per month. The total interest paid at the end of the 50 years is $755,000. This is a racket. It's not worth saving $100. Looking at these numbers, you're just like, the whole thing needs to go. This is why people become socialists. This is why Mamdani got elected. Now, for those little bit more mature people out there, those who have lived the life, those who have done the thing, you understand. There's just the price you pay. It's the price you pay to play the game. And in this system that we live in, you either pay the price to play the game or you don't play the game. And in this world, not playing the game can be a very uncomfortable way to live your life. You could be like Enoch Visions in the chat here, says monopoly money. It is all monopoly money. That is just how we should do it, Just it's not even real. It's not real. There is something to say about those who just sort of, and I think this is the kind of the billionaire mentality a bit when it comes to money, when it comes to the beast system. Just think of it like a video game. This might be a metaphor. It might be kind of sad that I, as a 30-something-year-old, has to give a metaphor to just say, pretend it's a video game. But from what I've heard and from what I've been told, pretending it's a video game is just the only way you can mentally get into it. So I'm not going to go through the rest of these numbers. There's a lot of numbers. I'll give you one last number. They go through the loan amounts for 300, 400,000, and 500,000. Realistically, they say I think the medium house price is 400,000. When I look around, things mostly, are going to be between 4 and 6. For a $500,000 house, 50 years, 6.8%, you're paying $1.2 million in interest. You pay the 500,000, but then you're paying almost 3 times as much just for the interest. I should have gone into banking. I should have been a banker. Why did I do this? What was I thinking? I was so young. I was so young when I started podcasting. I didn't know I'd still be doing this. Nobody knew what podcast was. I thought it was just like a fun thing to do. And here I am. I should have gone into finance. Kids, I would have been horrible at finance. That is not my, I would have, maybe not. Maybe I would have been great. I'll never know. What is it like? Anybody in the chat here in finance? What are the chances that a 30-something can get into finance? From what I hear, it's not a possible thing to do. So there you go. 50-year mortgages, a new, it's like advertising to the slave population. Like, oh, new slave contract. Yay. It's worse, but you can get into it. Look, are you sad that you weren't able to get in on that 30-year slave contract? Is that 30-year slave contract too expensive for you kids? Well, you're in luck. New and improved 50-year slave contract. What in the world are we doing here? All right. All right. Well, that's pretty close to all I got for today, folks. Not bad. How'd I go? What time is it? 2 hours? Come on now. 2 hours. I could go into the $2,000 stimmy check, but there's nothing there. It's not real. The stimmy check was another one of those things. He was just messing around. He threw it out there. It's chaos out there, kids. Is there anything wild or interesting we can end the show with? Let's try to see if there's any 3-eye atlas. Joyful Noise says most bankers are in secret societies, Baz. Well, First Bank of Basel. Yeah, Irene, thank you very much. I'm going to do it. I'm going to open up the First Bank of Basel. Dude, with these numbers that I'm looking at here, somebody could easily cut this in half. I mean, I guess maybe there's rules and stuff. What? Is the government going to control the interest rate that I loan out my $300,000? Really? You're not going to let me loan out my $300,000 at a 5% interest rate? I don't know how any of this works. It's probably good I didn't get into banking. V-Note says, all you need, Basil, is to get some precious metals like copper, silver, save it up, and I'm sure you'll have more than the banks. Interesting you say that, V-Note. Thanks for mentioning that. We got some cool interviews coming out, folks, and I just locked in another interview for a couple weeks from now, or next week, I guess. We're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to beat the system. No 50-year mortgages for us. You're right, V-Note. It's all about the gold backs, the silver. If there's anybody out there who wants to take a young and upcoming 30-something-year-old podcaster under their wing and try to see if we can get me to retirement age intact, you let me know. You let me know. Joyful Noise says, we won't get it just like the Fort Knox audit hoax. Yeah. The chat is on fire today. Okay. I could just sit there and hang out in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Let's see here. Oh, you know what I didn't do is read any text messages. I don't know if my text messages went out to everybody today. You can get on the text message alert system. You should, because it's real easy for the platforms to not let you know that we go live. But if you're on the text message alert system, do this. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. If you do that, you'll get text messages from us whenever we go live. Again, just text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. We'll send you a little message before we go live. And fun part is you can text us back at that number. I can't carry on a conversation with you because it's very expensive. But let's see here. People are sending me links. Let's see what this link is. Let's see if it crashes my computer. It's not my fault. I am not a robot. What are you doing? What are you sending me to? Okay, somebody just sent me. Oh, yeah. Who is this? 830 sent me a link to an archived article for Alex Karp. Alex Karp is the Palantir CEO. When did this come out? November 10th. Okay. All right. This is a brand new one. All right. Let's see this. Alex Karp goes to war. Palantir CEO is good with ICE and says he defends human rights, but will Israel and Trump ever go too far for him? All right, let's see what he has. We'll take a quick. Let's see what this is. Alex Karp and I would not seem to have much in common. I work for Wired, which does tough reporting on Trump world. Okay, Wired. Karp is the CEO of Palantir, a $450 billion firm that has contracts with agencies like the CIA and ICE and worked for the Israeli military during its campaign in Gaza. I live in the East Village of New York City, and the home Karp spends the most time in is a 500-acre compound in rural New Hampshire. Okay, goals. 500 acres in New Hampshire. A lot of people don't know New Hampshire is like this libertarian paradise. Last year, he was one of the highest paid executives in the United States. I was a plain old English major, and he's got a law degree and a PhD in philosophy, studying under the legendary Jürgen Habermas. I consider myself a progressive. Karp regards all that stuff as pagan religion. Yeah, Karp. You're making Karp sound pretty cool, Wired. I mean, we know the truth. We know the deal, but Wired, it feels like Wired is playing their part to act fooled by Karp in order to garner him conservative credit. We've done the deep dive in Karp. We know the deal. He's puts on this like weird conservative libertarian air, but is in fact a sort of authoritarian communist. We've gone through the whole thing. But Wired is playing an interesting part here in acting fooled by Karp's kind of theater, his conservative theater. We can bond over one shared status. Both of us are alumni of Central High School, a Philadelphia magnet school. Not at the same time. I have some years. Oh my gosh. Wired, get to the point. Maybe it was that connection that led Karp to agree to a sit down. The son of a Jewish pediatrician and a black artist, Karp struggled with dyslexia, and at Central, he seems to have turned a corner, even speculating now that overcoming the challenge helped position him later for success. Okay, this is an interview with Karp. This is an incredibly long interview with Karp. Thank you, 830. I'm going to have to read this by myself. Let's see. I'll pick one. I'll pick one of these questions. Let's see here. Talks a lot about, here's some questions. Does your Jewish background inform the support Palantir is giving to Israel? A lot of Jews, me included, feel affinity to Israel, but also feel what's happening in Gaza is intolerable. We're not talking about the little things here. When you get a letter from 13 former employees saying that Palantir's leadership has failed to stand up to authoritarianism, do you take that seriously? Come on, softball. Give me a good question. All right, I'll do the Israel one. Does your Jewish background inform the support Palantir is giving to Israel? I don't give to Israel. I allow them to purchase our product. Look at that guy. Does your Jewish background inform the support Palantir is giving Israel? I don't give to Israel. I allow them to purchase our product. Look, you're asking whether we are defined by where we sit or by our ideas. I always think it's both. I view myself as an outsider. There's obviously a particularistic element, no doubt, but I would like to believe that a support of Western values and their robust defense includes something that's not just me doing a derivative of my own identity. Oh, that's kind of a burn. This is like the Alex Karp version of Sydney Sweeney reacting to the GQ interview. All right, I'll take a look at that. Thank you very much, 830, for sending. That actually looks like it could get entertaining. Okay. Oh, Nomen Prunte says, please check the speak pipe from last week. Okay, we'll do that. All right. Let's see. Did we get any art? Let me go over here. Folks, it's time, talent, treasure. It's value for value. Oh, yeah, we had a couple producers. Not a whole lot of producers, but we had a couple producers. Well, maybe that's what we get then. This is the show that we get with no producers. Thank you, of course, to executive producer Anonymous and Sir Alex Protocol. We had a fella producer, Walker G, came in, supported the show, joined the Supply Drop and the T-shirt Council. Thank you, Walker G, coming in, buddy. Appreciate that. You went to canarycrysupplydrop.com. Folks, go to canarycrysupplydrop.com. Here's the thing. Sign up. Support the show on a monthly basis. But this next supply drop, not only does it have the Canary Cry calendar, it's going to be awesome, but we also have a very special gift. If you want to defeat the banking empire, if you want to become a banker yourself, you're going to want to get on the supply drop. This Friday, we have a conversation coming out. We have an interview coming out. I can't reveal the cool secret thing that's going out in the supply drop until afterwards. But go now. This is a limited opportunity. You want to go to canarycrysupplydrop.com. Support the show. Honestly, you know, Farmer's Almanac is shutting down. Farmer's Almanac. I mean, it's almost like, you know, they say the things that are certain in life is death and taxes. Farmer's Almanac was the third thing in that list. Farmer's Almanac, the sort of ancient tome that somehow packs all the mystery knowledge of weather and time and crop rotations into one book. Farmer's Almanac, the thing that basically built Western civilization. They've been going for 208 years. Farmer's Almanac shutting down. 2026 is their last year. Why? Because nobody buys Farmer's Almanac anymore. They just think, oh, well, I'll hear whatever. If Farmer's Almanac has anything important, the news will tell me, or my podcasters will tell me. I don't need to get Farmer's Almanac. John C. Dvorak, Adam Curry were lamenting the fact that they did not support Farmer's Almanac, and now it's gone. It's truly a historic piece of Americana. More than Americana. The Western civilization owes a lot to Farmer's Almanac. And they're shutting down. They're shutting down because nobody bought Farmer's Almanac. Could be us, folks. Could be us. Except for producer Tracy E. came in. Thank you very much, Tracy E. Supports the show for $8.88. Appreciate that. And of course, we have the one, the only, Cage Rattler Coffee. Dun, dun, dun. CageRattlerCoffee.com. Go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. You got to get the coffee. You got to get the good stuff. Here's the thing. It's just not any coffee. This is specialty beans, baby, coming in from all over the world. We have very talented producers sourcing beans from all over the place. I have another very talented producer roasting these beans bean by bean for the parallel economy, for the Canary Cry community. Go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. Here's a jingle.
Cage Rattler Coffee, where value for value never tasted so good.
That's right. Go get your CageRattlerCoffee.com. Don't stop. Don't stop before you do it. Cage Rattler Coffee came in, supported the show. That means that Canarians are buying their beans, okay? That's good. That's a good sign. And the fact that they just keep coming back for their beans means that you should go give it a go, all right? We got the Cage Rattler Coffee sample pack. You get 4 12-ounce bags. Booyah. We got the Congo Katana region, Nicaragua Hinatega region, the what else? Colombia Huili region, the Ethiopia Yirgacheffe region. Listen to all these regions. We got Tanzania, Kilimanjaro. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with some beans from Kilimanjaro? Got the Tanzania, Kilimanjaro, Nephilim Hunter Dark Roast. If you're not drinking this, I don't know what you're doing. How are you even alive? Go support the show. Go get your beans. Somebody's getting these beans because they keep supporting the show. Thank you to our producers who came in under $7.77. I got you on the list. Thank you on Wednesday. Let's see. We got art. Let me go over to the art. Yeah, we got some art. What is this? Let's see if I can just play this right here. This is from Jolmes. Share this tab. All right, Jolmes, what do you got?
Daddy's home.
It's horrifying. Horrifying, Jolmes. You didn't send a note or anything with this. It is it's a very spooky jingle of what I'm assuming is me saying Daddy's home from last episode. Let's hear it again.
Daddy's home.
All right, Jolmes. I don't know what you're trying to say. I love it, though. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. No other art. Hey, here's the thing. If you want to produce the show with your talent, if you're a musician, a jingle maker, a graphic. Oh, we did have one. Okay, this comes from Dame. Let me make sure. Yes. Dame Sarah made this beautiful piece of the there it is. The Masonic beaver. We had lots of questions about the Masonic beaver that showed up on the Canary Cry calendar. And here it is. It says, this was inspired by the calendar discussion. You boys are hilarious. Love the Canarium. Thank you very much, Dame Sarah of the Shadows, for this beautiful. It's sort of a watercolor on watercolor paper. In the foreground, you have a beaver chomping on a stick who's built sort of a beautiful, little hut, little beaver hut. And in the background, you've got the full moon, because we were talking about the beaver full moon. And you've got the shadow of the Masonic square and compass hovering back in the sky, sort of ominously, as the Masonic beaver, does his job as a reflection of the great architects, reflected in nature, building stuff like the Masons. The Masons love that kind of stuff. Thank you very much, Sarah. Dame Sarah, that is. All right, there you go. If you want to make anything for the show, man, doesn't matter what it is, whatever it is, go to canarycry.art. Canarycry.art. That's how you get it to us. You upload it there. It goes into a spreadsheet, and it gets appreciated by everyone around the world. All right. That's it. Other than that, thank you, everybody. We have some people who help us out with their time, like the time stampers. Thank you very much to the time stampers. I'm almost positive that I've not been supplied with the timestamp jingle, and that's okay, because here's the thing, time stampers, you are above needing a jingle. Okay, everybody knows the time stampers are making sure that the timestamps get done, rain or shine or any other strange geoengineered weather. And I don't know who did them, but it was either Jade Bouncerson or Morgan E. Thank you very much. Thank you to Jam, who heads up the Telegram channel. Thank you to Adam42, who heads up the Discord channel. Thank you to Joe for all the feedback. Thank you to Clank for clanking. Thank you to Sir Ike for all the things you do for us here at the Canarium. And to you, dear listener, thank you for being here either live or even listening on the podcast version. Very important for people to listen on the podcast version. And of course, our beloved producers of all kinds. Make sure to share the show, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your friends' family, share it with all the beavers, share it with the Masonic beavers. They're out there. They think that they're doing the work of the great architects, or whatever. But they need Jesus too. Okay. They need Jesus, and God made beavers, and it's not God's fault that they're deceived into thinking that they have some sort of Gnostic secret knowledge that they can gain their salvation through the collection of success and intelligence, leading them through esoteric nonsense. It's easier than that, beavers. Just come to Jesus. Yeah, do that. Share the show. All right. Oh, goodness gracious. Here we go. I haven't done this in a while. I think this is it. Let's do this. We like to call it rattling cages, and all you got to do is walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. That's ask Noah. Whoa, okay, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Here's the thing. John's not here. He doesn't get any last words. But I will do a call out. I will do a call out to every single person who has ever considered supporting the show. Look, I get it. This show, we made it happen. We're here. It could have been worse. I admit it could have been worse. It's not bad. It's myself. But you do need to keep the show going. I'm telling you, if you don't sign up for Supply Drop, there are going to be people who are so sad, and they're going to say, "Oh, I meant to, but I couldn't, but I didn't." And I go, "I'm sorry. These things, there's manufacturing times, there's limits on the things we can do." I'm looking feverishly for the thing that ends the song. I don't know how this show is going to end, folks. It's a mystery to all of us. I don't even know how long this goes. There's no indicator. There's no timeline. There's no scrubbing. There's no countdown. And I don't know what happens at the end of it, but we're going to find out. Might just be one of those things. But I'm telling you, folks, stay grounded.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
No, it's built right in. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, take outside the cave.